Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So this one is against Chessleonmaster. As always, a formidable opponent, always one producing exciting games. Let's get to it. d4, knight f6, and knight f3. So our friend Leon goes for a sort of Torre attack or some sort of the structure where it's sort of symmetrical. Maybe there's c3, maybe there's c4. It really depends upon the player. Here I play d5, and I just say, okay, well, we have a symmetrical position. I want to see what you are going to do. So I play, so our friend plays e3, and I play g6. I decided to change it up, right? Initially, I said I was going to play c5, knight c6, and go for some sort of, normalish open setup. But I played g6 and I said, I want to have an interesting game. Bishop d3, bishop there, and now b3. And I remember I was like, wow, that's interesting. I castled, bishop to b2, and now b6. So things are heating up. We're all developing. Bishop to b7, castles, knight to d7, and now knight e5. And in this position, I remember spending a little bit of time thinking, okay, well, our friend is gonna play f4 and maybe f5. And do I consider that a threat? Well, I guess I do. But do I have to worry about it right now? Not exactly. So I played c5, and after f4, I played e6. Just saying, if you play f5, I will have two pawns that attack the square. Queen to e2, and now a6. So I'm not doing much, but I'm saying don't come in here, or don't come in here. I want to keep it a safe space for myself, so I'll just play a6. And after c4, I thought, well, I want to take, and after knight takes, I want to play b5, right? And that's the goal. So after pawn takes, then I don't know, right? So I decided queen c7. Let's wait it out. Rook a c1, and now our friend wants to desperately open the file. So our friend wants to likely play pawn takes c5, pawn takes d5, my bad, on the next move. So I take on c4. Knight takes c4. So I knew that in this position, one of these two pieces had to capture, or this piece, because I know that our friend Chessleonmaster probably doesn't want to take with the pawn, because the rook came here and our friend placed it there for a reason. So I was assuming, okay, well, one of those pieces are going to take. So after knight takes and b5, knight d2, and at this point I was thinking, okay, well, I was definitely in time pressure in one of my other games, but I'll reveal it to you later, that I was in time pressure against Benjamin, and you might recognize that name from maybe 2 weeks ago, but he was a formidable opponent, and he is a formidable opponent as well. And in this position, I blundered. What our friend Chessleonmaster didn't know is that I blundered. So I played queen to b6, and this allowed something very, very powerful for white. So in this position, I remember I looked at it, I said briefly, okay, all I have to do is get my queen out of the diagonal, and I have to protect the c5 pawn, right? So my initial instinct was one of these two moves, queen d6 or queen b6. The only reason why I thought queen d6 looked a little bit odd was because I kind of felt like it wasn't in the right place, because I was thinking about if white could ever play e4 and e5 in the future. But obviously right now there's a knight on e5. But I was taking precautions. And also I thought after queen to b6, I thought, let me just put a little bit of pressure on the d4 pawn. But this is a mistake. This is a flat-out blunder that was due to literally 5 seconds of thought. I did not think any much further. And after pawn takes, well, let's see how long I took. I took 7 seconds to blitz this move out. And I sort of knew it was a mistake, but I couldn't quite identify it as a blunder at the time. I said, okay, well, one day white's gonna take here, but I think I'm okay after that. But the problem is, in this position, if I take with the knight, there's bishop to d4, and I'm toast. Rook defends the knight, but now b4. Just simple as that. Using this pin and taking advantage of it. So our friend Chessleonmaster could have won a piece here. And if I did not take here, let's say I played queen to c7, but then there's c6, and I would have been like, no, no, no. Because if knight to b6, then good night to our bishop. So, as you can tell, that was not a blunder that was worth doing. Queen b6, and luckily our friend played knight takes d7, pawn takes c5, pieces were traded, and here I considered bishop takes f3 here. And after rook takes f3, I was thinking, well, rook to d8, I think, and then play rook to c8. I said this was okay, but instead I said take, take, and take. And now you might be thinking, well, National Master Kevin Yang, didn't you say that if we thought this bishop was better than this knight, we should not trade it? Yes, well, I did say that, like, if one piece is better than the another, you want to probably keep it on the board. But in this position, I traded because I saw something in mind. I realized that my rooks are going to come here. They're going to come to the open files, and they're going to do their job. But the problem is, I saw this move knight to d4, and I thought it was hideous. It was annoying. So I was like, let's just remove it. And let's play rook d8. And after check, I play king g8. And then queen f6 happened. And to be honest, I was a little bit scared here. With rook h3 coming, and queen h4, with attacks on h7, I didn't quite like it. It was just a bit wobbly. So after rook d3, I decided I needed to push counterattack. I needed to push something, right? Rook e1, and here I played queen to a5. Now, this move might not be the most accurate, but it does create some fear for Chessleonmaster. Because I'm attacking the rook, and I'm attacking the pawn. Now, I think the simple way to do it is play rook to e2, just like our friend Chessleonmaster did. Then I play rook c8, and now I threaten maybe doubling on the file, or playing rook to c8 and rook to d2, and trying to trade so that I can get my queen in. So I have some threats here. So then queen h4 is played, and in this position, I said, okay, well, I really want to play rook d2, but what about queen to e1, right? What happens here? And immediately I was like, well, there's this, and and there's this and this, and I have no edge, right? And then I looked at this and I was like, I don't know. I kind of feel like after rook f2, what do I do, right? But there was rook takes a2, and that's where I forgot. So in this position, rook e2, our friend Chessleonmaster spent a lot of time here. It was a tricky position, right? But I'm not sure that you had to spend a lot of time on rook e2 there, because to me it sort of felt like if you played king f1, then I just take on a2. So there really wasn't much of an option there, right? But another option maybe was queen h4, right? Going for rook h3 and attack and defending the rook at the same time. I would have thought about maybe I go rook c8, rook c2, and rook d2, or maybe I think, what about just taking here, right? But then there's rook h3, and after h5 and g4, things got a little messy again. So, I don't know. But queen a5, rook d2, rook to c8, and after queen h4, I played check because I said, okay, if you want to play rook f1, be my guest. I'll take, rook d1, king f2, and I'm gonna just hang around. I might not do anything big here. I might just play queen c3. I might play king g7. But the goal is to keep the pressure on this rook. We don't want this rook to come actively coming for our king. So maybe I'll play queen c3, right? Or maybe I'll play queen c7. But my goal is to sort of limit the rook's presence. So if rook c2, then queen to e1. So right now we're okay, but things are tough, right? And our friend played king to f2, but now there's the move rook to d2. And you sort of see the engine evaluation spike. And that's because, well, this rook is not in the right place to defend against the threats. So let's say if rook h3 happened, my goal would be to play, I could play h5 for starters, or I could play rook takes e2. And after king takes, I could play queen takes a2, king to f3, rook to f1, and after king g4, queen takes g2. And already you start to see that black is taking over the position, right? Because these two guys are just a little bit far out from the action. So that was a tough game, but the opening was tricky, right? Chessleonmaster played it perfectly, but when we got to this position, this just goes to show how important it is at the very start of your calculation to check for forcing moves. You've got captures, you've got to check the checks, right? You've got to check the sacrifices. That's what's important when decision making is here. Knight takes and trading, and then I make the decision to trade here because otherwise the knight would have been a blockade on d4. But otherwise it was a rather interesting game, right? Rook to e2, so I had chances. And then rook to c1 continued the pressure, but it was a one-move blunder by Chessleonmaster. Because here, the pieces are just too far away from trying to defend whatever is going on the c file, the d file, and with the queen coming in. It was tough. But hope you learned a lot, and hope that these experiences continue to allow you to grow. And chess is fun if you give it a good try. So, thank you, and I'll see you next time.